Before you migrate with your family, you need to hear this. You've heard stories about migration is expensive. Migration costs a lot of money, migration and this and that. But I want to touch briefly on a very important aspect that when you're migrating with your family, you really need to understand this. You see, most people think that immigration is expensive. I'm talking about your visa fees, I'm talking about your cost of applications, but that is just the beginning of it. Let me take you into a ride and let's use a case study of a country like Australia or Canada. See, the issue is before you migrate, most people make a mistake that once I get a visa, everything else is going to fall in place. Well, that is not true. When you get a visa, it's just a start. But what needs to do now is you need to move into a careful planning and strategy. Remember, you're coming with kids who might be in school. You're coming with your spouse who might be resigning from their job. You're coming with a whole family. You're uprooting your life from your comfort zone into unknown, uncharted territory. Also, this needs planning. This needs serious planning. Now, the starting point is you need to research about cost of living. That is the biggest thing. Cost of living. I'm talking about your accommodation. How much is accommodation? How much is rental? And please remember, make sure you get accommodation before even leaving your country. Some people get so excited, they even book an Airbnb. Some they even book a hotel and they say by 1 week they've got an accommodation. It's not as easy as you think. One, accommodation needs careful planning. Start talking to estate agents. Find someone who can act as a guarantor. Speak to your employer who might have offered you a job. Or if you don't have an employer, please make sure you utilize the time to search for an accommodation. Now, remember, accommodation is not cheap. Accommodation does not come easy. It is affordable when you start generating money from the country. And it will be very expensive if you are using your foreign currency from your home country. If your currency or your best currency is not strong to the country that you're going to. I'm talking about, for example, let's talk about Australia. Most here, accommodation and rentals are paid weekly. Okay, accommodation and rentals are paid weekly. And if you don't plan to know the rentals, if you don't plan how much it costs, then you will be in for a big shock of your life. Okay, you need to be a big shock because now you are moving, you are relocating. Some people don't have a job as yet, and maybe they got permanent residence before moving in through general skilled migration, and now they are planning to move, and they are leaving these loopholes. Most probably, I saved some lump sum money on the side, and I'm thinking that money is going to sustain me. So understand where are you going to arrive? What is the rental fees? How much does it cost? And number two, also find out the cost of living. How much am I going to be paying for the rent? How much am I going to be paying for transport? Especially if you go to some areas that are remote or some areas that are regional, where you don't even have Uber, like you're going to a center, there's no Uber. You need to know what is your mobility. In most cases, a car is a necessity. You need actually to budget money to buy a car on arrival because you have 3 kids, you've got a wife, and everyone needs to move. You need to do grocery. You might need to start work. So you need to budget that if your finances allow it. Okay, so that is one big. Of course, there are issues about cultural integration. There are some communities in other countries where they're not receptive. They're not receptive to external cultures, but I mean, Australia is one of the most integrated communities. You go into some areas where you think maybe you're in Asia, where you don't even meet any people you think are local. I'm just giving an example that there is a high, vibrant migrant culture. So I don't think you might have that kind of a shock. And then now the next thing is let's talk about daycare. Daycare is a big nightmare for many people. So here, unlike most of the countries, maybe you're coming from South Africa, you're coming from Zimbabwe, you're coming from Kenya, Uganda, whatever country you're coming from. I'm sure you used the environment where if you look for a placement for a daycare, you can look for this weekend, you can get it here. They've got a waiting period. You can even wait for next year. You understand? So now, if you come and you're planning to come with kids who might need to be in kindergarten, you need to plan. Are you on a waiting list? And what is the plan before the kids are able to go to daycare? So you need to be in a waiting list depending on the area. And you need to persistently follow up and use all the areas in the environment where you're going to. So daycare is very important. Because remember, if you don't have a daycare, then somebody's going to have to look after the child, which means if you're a couple, one of you is not going to work. You're going to be looking and tendering after the child. So that becomes a very big factor. So it's very important to understand, do you have a daycare? And then let's talk about schools. Schools as well. Schools might not be that difficult. You might get placement here and there. And again, you need to start researching before taking your kids out of school from where you're coming from. What are the schools there? What are the placements? And how far is the school from the house? Can I get a school run? You need a car to move a child from school. And the other interesting thing is that, okay, you might have a child who's going to school. School might finish at 3:30 in the afternoon. That is during the day. So if the school finishes during the day, that is around 3:30, and then maybe you are working until 5 p.m. So what is going to happen? Who's going to pick up the child? Who's going to take the child home? And who's going to stay with the child? Do you have a facility for aftercare school? All those things are very important. And these are some of the things that make life difficult if you do not plan. So I think it's very important that you know your school, you know the distance, you know the proximity, you know the mode of transport, and you budget for it. And then are you planning to have one person not work? Are you planning to have one person work remotely? I'm talking about a couple and a family. Or are you all just going to start work and do you have all it figured out? Is there a school bus for the child to go at their school? These are some of the major issues. I've met people where they say, I cannot work because I don't have a daycare for my child. So now that means they're taking money from the savings, and they're taking money from their pocket. And if you're taking money from your savings, it means your savings are foreign currency and you lose a lot of value because you are now spending in a stronger currency. For you to live here comfortably, you need to generate the money locally. So now if you are converting your currency, you might be eating into your savings. And these are some of the major issues that you need to plan. So next time, if you have a visa, if you have received your invitation for permanent residence, or even if you got it sponsored by an employer, do a research. Find out what are the flight tickets, how much is it to fly there for a family of three, how much is it, what is the weekly rental, what is the deposit or what is the bond, how much do they want? Some rentals are 600, some are $500 a week, some are $400 a week, whatever rental fits in your budget. What is it? I will speak about the other part in my next video, but I just wanted to touch briefly that people need to, because if you don't plan around these areas, and then one spouse might end up looking stuck because they're not able to generate income. And at the end of the day, it becomes a messy situation. So it's very important to plan. Sometimes it's even advisable that one person might come, get settled, and then bring the family later. Because some people, their circumstances might not allow them to just come all together, but because they're excited that we are moving, we are relocating, we've got the visas, they all just come through. I'll talk to you more about it in the next video, but please remember, if you are coming with a family, don't just rush yourself.